let's talk about Paystack's recent report. That report really gave us an idea into how people think about payments in Nigeria. It gave a lot of insights into which payment methods do people prefer, the ones they use the most, and things like that. Think
Mm-hmm.
what was there anything you found really surprising in that report?
Surprising. Um,
For me, I think it was the fact that people
preferred
preferred bank
transfer.
transfers, which I don't really get. Card
I personally
payments,
get it.
how? Like, why would you prefer bank transfer?
So if you use a traditional bank, yes, you would not prefer it. But a lot of fintechs have really seamless. So a bank that shall not be named. For me to do a transfer, I have to open the first page, impute, I think account number, and then I'll choose the bank. Then I go to the second page
Mm.
and I impute like two more details. Then I go to the third page and I impute another detail. Then I now have to go impute a password. That's four pages I have to go through before I complete a transaction, like complete a transfer.
That's even if it loads all the
Exact.
cards successfully.
Yeah, exactly. So, however, on some apps, all I need is like just one page, and I put everything. Like I'm filling out a form,
Mm.
and then hit send, put in my password or whatever, and then that's about it. So, if you are doing transfers on two apps that had like these different interfaces, of course, a transfer on the person with four steps and the one with just one page is not going to be the same. So I can understand why people want to do transfers, do more transfers than cards. However, while the data is like interesting, I don't think it paints the full picture of how digital payments are done in Nigeria. And I say that because for a very long time, Paystack's business was focused on you have a business, you want to accept payments online, right? So there was nothing like a POS device, for example. And if you want to accept payments online, bank transfers are like a very common way for people. It's faster than card details because it's faster than paying with card because now you have to, if you don't have your card
At that point.
at that point, I don't know. Okay, well, some people say they save their card details on their phones, but if you don't have your card at that point, you have to go find it. Whereas with bank transfer, all I need is who am I transferring it to,
Copy.
and that's it. Copy, paste, and then I'm doing it. So I can understand why people who are doing online digital transactions, I don't know, offline digital transactions is a thing. Let it not be I'm saying rubbish,
Yes.
but yeah, if I'm saying rubbish, you should correct me. But I think for online digital transactions, it makes sense that transfers are a preferred
So
method.
if someone like Money Points release a similar report,
Exactly. If MoneyPoint was to do that, it would be completely different because they started with an offline approach where they were providing POS devices, for example. And with the POS device, first thing, for a very long time, you could not do a transfer to a POS device. I think it was in last year that they introduced POS transfers. So if MoneyPoint were to do that, I think they have about 1 million POS devices out in the market or so.
probably even more.
Okay. Yeah. So you can imagine if a Money Point is to release that report, it's going to look entirely different. And yes, that's how I'm looking at it. It shows us that a lot of people are doing electronic transfers, but it I don't think it captures the full picture of what digital transactions would look like in Nigeria.
Okay. So, and I think another thing that really stuck out for me is the fact that um, it's really, you can't really, is there really any should I say predictions
Mm.
we can make on what payments would look like in a few years based on what Paystack
Release.
on this report that Paystack has released? Does it mean that um, some people using? Does it mean that based on the service provider you're using,
Mm.
there's a payment method that you prefer, or is there like a general prediction we can make that okay, based on this, people will probably tilt more towards this?
Okay. So I don't know that we can make predictions, but what we can do is infer how people make payments. So, like I said earlier, if you go to a Just Right or a ShopRite, for example, you may not. The chances that you'll be using transfers is probably slim compared to using your card. And here's the thing: like a lot of people who own bank accounts in Nigeria have debit cards they have debit cards, right? So many of the times when you want to buy stuff, you're also going with these debit cards. However, if you were trying to place an order for food and like online now, if you wanted to make an order, you may or may not be with your card, which means you're going to be using you're most likely going to be doing a transfer. So in cases where people are not, there's no physical touch point, they are more likely to use they're more likely to use transfers. I mean, it just makes sense. Like if I go to sometimes when I go to stores, it's easier for me to pull out my card, give them savings or current, and I'm paying. By the way, I don't know why they're always asking savings or current, but it's easier for me to pull out my card, give them, and make a payment. Whereas if I have to do a transfer, and I have to start asking, and not everyone displays an account number boldly. Some of them even have several accounts. And one problem too I have with the account, the transfer bit is, yes, we have guys like OP, MoneyPoint that are kind of making it almost instant for you to discover. But for a very long time, I avoided doing transfers at, in fact, anytime I needed to do anything, if I didn't have my card, I would not make a payment, because card payments they are instant. The person who you're paying to gets it instantly. But with online transfers, God help you, you're using certain banks. Your transfer could, sorry, did you say 15 minutes? Maybe getting the transfer, maybe getting to the person the next day. I mean, you've probably tried to pay for Uber with transfer, and then you're sitting down in the car, and maybe the AC was so cold. You wanted to get down, but you cannot get down, because if you get down, it's going to look like you want to run. And you cannot be embarrassed in this Lagos.
Never just come and
tackle
you down before people know what's going on.
You can't take that chance in Lagos.
Looking like 2 by 2 on your head.
So, I think it depends on the kind of transaction that you're making.
The funny thing is that for me, even though there's no physical touch point, I still prefer, maybe because it's based on the type of online transactions I do. So
you prefer transfers?
No, I prefer card. So
okay,
on a lot of platforms that on Glovo, for example, I already have my card on Glovo.
Okay.
So I don't really, I like that.
So you have mine though, which is another part of the problem.
Okay.
Or I don't know if it's a problem, but it's another part of what informs how people pay, right? So, when I got a Bolt, like when I signed up on Bolt, I used it for like maybe a few weeks. There was no problem. I put my card actually. I used it for a few weeks. There was no problem. But then one day I booked a ride, and the ride never happened. But later on, I was debited, and sorry.
Was it for wait?
Not you can't possibly be debiting me 1.5 for wait time now.
Wow.
This was 2021 or 2022, right? And they debited me for whatever reason. I tried to dispute it, but I don't know, either I was not explaining myself well, or the person just did not get what I was saying. But in the end, I was like, let's read. I can't be doing this for so long. And my decision was, let's just take my card out. I'll do transfers whenever I have to use Bolt or Uber. It's been 2 years now. My card has not entered that platform again. Like, not even for a few days. So that's the same behavior I have across every platform that requires me to put, apart from let's say my subscriptions, because I don't want a situation where I hear that the card did not work because you know how virtual cards can be, except those cases where you don't know whether the card that worked today will work tomorrow. Those ones I just keep the card there so that I don't have to hear stories. But when it comes to service providers in Nigeria, my card is not there. And I suspect that's the same. I don't know about that, but I suspect it's the same scenario for me because I've had people who complain that my card was in this platform, the service wasn't delivered, and I was still debited. So I mean, there's a whole lot of it's a nuanced conversation, to be honest.
But if I would guess, right, if I would make a prediction based on what I've heard a lot of people say, based on what you've said, I would say that anything, like you said, when there's no physical touch point, when it's an online transaction and you have to pay online, I think most people will tilt towards transfer. I think we'll see transfer grow on that end, and we'll see card grow when people go to like a store, for example, and they need to pay. I think that's because it just makes sense because I don't want to put. Not everybody will have mind like me and put their card on global, and one day you'll just see debit alert.
Yes, so okay, especially for these like service providers, one problem is what if you don't get like satisfactory service? I could hold back my payment if you're doing pay on delivery. Maybe you deliver food that I did not ask for. I can hold back my payment. But if I've already made a card, like if my card was there and you've already paid me for, like I've already paid you for it, then I now have to start doing a lot of back and forth to get my money back. And to be honest, I don't have the strength for that. To listen to the full episode of this podcast, visit podcast.techpoint.africa or search for Techpoint Africa Podcast on your favorite podcast platforms.